Hey Sagittarius and Sagittarius Rising. This horoscope is your guide to April 2025, and whether your sun is in Sagittarius or Sagittarius is on your ascendant, there's a lot in the sky you'll want to pay attention to. Now, quick heads up. If you don't know your rising sign, don't worry. You can check any astrology site, you just need your birth date, time, and birth location. If that feels like too much trouble, just email me and I'll help you figure it out. April kicks off with a quiet but undeniable feeling that something at the core of your life is shifting. Not loudly, not in a dramatic movie trailer kind of way, but deeper, like the slow, subtle creak of a house settling on its foundation, or maybe realizing that the foundation itself is shifting. For Sagittarius rising, April speaks directly to your fourth house, the part of the chart that governs home, family, roots, your inner base. This is not about what you show the world, but what happens behind the scenes, behind closed doors, when you're not performing for anyone. It's where you feel safe. This month, a cluster of planets moves through that private, emotional territory. Venus, Saturn, the North Node, Mercury, and Neptune all pass through Pisces, the sign ruling your fourth house. That's a lot of emotional weather in one place. For some Sagittarius risings, this can feel like a flood of feelings that don't have a name. For others, it's more grounded. Themes of moving, real estate, family commitments, or facing generational patterns you've outgrown. You might be asking yourself, where do I belong? Who's my anchor? What makes me feel secure? And what am I still carrying from the past, emotionally or physically, that I no longer need? The presence of Saturn in this house means this isn't light and fluffy. There's a seriousness to the questions rising now. Saturn wants structure, boundaries, responsibility. If you've been avoiding certain conversations with family or ignoring the need to create your own definition of home, Saturn isn't letting you off the hook anymore. And when Saturn meets the North Node mid-April, it becomes a turning point. Something karmic is in motion. You may not have all the answers yet, but you'll feel the weight of a decision forming, one that could reshape your relationship to family or the place you live. Venus also moves through this house in April, and while she usually brings ease and sweetness, here she's moving through waters stirred by Saturn and the node. It's not the playful kind of Venus. It's the one that says, if I'm going to build something lasting, it needs to feel right. It needs to feel like love, not obligation. For some, this may mean reconnecting with family in a more honest way. For others, it may mean choosing space or choosing to redefine what home means on your own terms. There's also Mercury, retrograde at first, which can stir up confusion, especially around communication with family or logistics around the home. Things might feel murky in the first week of April, and the past may come knocking in strange, subtle ways. Memories, messages, conversations that never quite finish. But when Mercury turns direct on April 7th, it's as if the fog starts to lift. You begin to think clearly again. You start putting the pieces together. What was tangled begins to unravel, and you see what's next. So April for you begins not with outward fireworks, but with a quiet emotional reckoning. You're reevaluating what gives you stability, where you feel grounded, who's in your corner, and whether the walls around you feel like shelter or a story you've outgrown. And once the inner ground begins to shift, everything else, your creativity, your relationships, your work, will feel it too. After the quiet emotional excavation of April's first weeks, where your foundations have been questioned, shaken, or maybe carefully reinforced, something shifts. The energy begins to rise, and you might feel a growing urge to move, express, and create. You've been doing the inner work. Now life wants you to come out and play, and maybe to fall in love with it all over again. That's because your fifth house is lit up like a stage, and the universe is basically handing you the mic. The solar eclipse and new moon in Aries on March 29th might have already set something in motion, a flicker of passion, a crush, a creative idea that won't let go. But in April, that fire continues to grow. The fifth house is where we flirt, perform, take risks, and express ourselves simply for the joy of it. And Aries doesn't do subtle. You might suddenly feel like taking center stage in your own life, even if just for a moment. Something in you wants to come alive, be seen, and be felt. But here's the twist. This isn't just about fun. There's something raw and real underneath it. On April 12th, the sun meets Chiron in Aries in that same fifth house, and it's like your heart steps forward, not just to shine, but to heal. Maybe you'll revisit an old hurt around being misunderstood, creatively blocked, or rejected. Maybe someone once told you not to make a scene, and now you're ready to do just that, only on your own terms. Don't be surprised if your emotional world feels exposed for a moment. Chiron isn't about pain for the sake of pain. It's about releasing the shame around being human. And in Aries, it says, you're allowed to want. You're allowed to show up. You're allowed to take up space. Some of you may experience this through romance, new or resurfacing, where old insecurities rise with new feelings. For others, it may come through children, a passion project, or the push to take a risk you've been too shy or self-protective to make. Either way, this is where you let the heart speak, even if it trembles a little. But just as you're getting swept up in all this creative, emotional heat, the tone shifts. On April 19th, the sun enters Taurus, moving into your sixth house, the realm of work, wellness, routines, and the body. Where Aries wanted fire and movement, Taurus says, okay, but how do you make it sustainable? And that's the beauty of this month. It's not all feeling or all structure. It's the balance between them, the emotional ignition, and then the daily care to carry it forward. If the fifth house is the performance, the sixth is what happens backstage, the practice, the discipline, the daily habits that make joy possible in the long run. You might find yourself suddenly craving more order. Not in a strict or punishing way, but as an act of devotion to your time, your energy, your health. The new moon in Taurus on April 27th plants the seed for a new routine, a new work rhythm, or a more grounded approach to taking care of yourself. It's an excellent time to set realistic intentions, because it's what your body, your schedule, your life actually needs now. And by the way, Taurus doesn't believe in hustling for the sake of it. It wants quality, stability, pleasure in the simple things. So don't be afraid to slow down, say no, or simplify what's become too chaotic. This part of the month is where you take all the inner clarity and creative momentum you've gathered and start weaving it into your day-to-day life, into your calendar, your meals, your boundaries, your breath. Because joy without structure burns out. But structure without joy? That's just a cage. You're learning how to carry your fire without dropping it or letting it consume you. By the time we get to the second half of April, something begins to pull you outward. It's subtle at first, like a breeze catching the edge of your jacket, tugging at you to look up from your to-do list and see the horizon again. You've been rooted in personal themes, home, emotions, creativity, healing, daily rhythm. But now, your vision begins to stretch. Let's talk about your 11th house first, the house of long-term goals, dreams, social networks, and the people who walk beside you, not because they have to, but because they choose to. On April 13th, a full moon in Libra lands here, and that light can be revealing. Full moons bring culmination, release, and clarity. In Libra, this one casts a soft but undeniable glow over your friendships, group connections, and future aspirations. You may suddenly see a relationship for what it really is, whether that means deepening a bond or gently stepping away. You might realize that a project you were working on with others has run its course or finally reaches a turning point. Sometimes the 11th house asks, are you walking toward a future that still excites you, or are you just keeping up appearances? This full moon might bring an invitation, a community breakthrough, or even a social awakening. It could also feel bittersweet. Maybe you've outgrown a group or a shared dream no longer fits. But whatever comes to light, it's helping you realign with what's real, with what inspires you, and with the people who are meant to walk beside you now, not yesterday. Then, just a few days later, Mars enters Leo on April 18th, activating your ninth house, the domain of travel, higher education, beliefs, and expansion. You could feel a jolt of energy here, like someone just opened a window and let in fresh air. The ninth house is Sagittarius's natural playground. It rules curiosity, truth-seeking, and the drive to understand life from a higher perspective. With Mars here, your hunger for more knowledge, more freedom, more meaning, comes roaring back. This could show up as a sudden urge to book a trip, enroll in a course, write, publish, teach, apply for a visa, or challenge a limiting belief that's been holding you in place. You might find yourself wanting to debate what's true, what's fair, what matters. That can be thrilling, but it can also spark friction if you're not careful. Mars in Leo can be bold, passionate, even a little theatrical. You may need to choose your battles. Don't waste your fire arguing for the sake of being right. Use it to pursue something meaningful, a perspective that liberates, not constrains. This energy is a reminder that life is bigger than just the here and now. That even while you're tending to the basics, your home, your schedule, your health, you still need a dream, a vision, a reason to keep moving forward. So let it in. Let that spark come through. Because when your world expands internally and externally at once, that's when real growth happens. As April winds down, there's a quieter current running underneath the action. One that doesn't shout or sparkle, but carries weight, the kind of weight that makes you pay attention. Let's start with partnerships. Even though there aren't major planets transiting your seventh house of one-on-one relationships this month, everything that's been happening, the emotional groundwork of the fourth house, the heart healing in the fifth, the practical reshaping of your sixth, and the push toward a bigger future in the ninth and 11th, all of that ripples into how you show up in relationships. This isn't the month to chase someone else's attention. It's the month to look at how you partner with yourself first, and then notice how that shifts the dynamics with others. If you're in a relationship, new clarity might emerge. If you're not, this may be the prelude to something more aligned showing up soon. By the end of April, especially after the new moon in Taurus on the 27th, you may feel something shift inside you, a new steadiness, a readiness to step forward. Not in a flashy, impulsive way, but with a grounded sense of, I know who I am. I know what I need. And I know what I'm building. April is a month that doesn't ask you to explode forward. It asks you to anchor in your body, your truth, your vision, to refine what's sacred and to cut what's not. It's the kind of month where you may not look different on the outside, but inside, you're not standing where you were a month ago. If this story spoke to you, if you saw yourself in it, or felt it stir something, I'd love for you to stick around. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you in the next one.